And Ron is the chair of our adult education ministry at First Church. And welcome to all of you who are here and hopefully still joining us in this time of transition for the session today. In particular, welcome, of course, to you, Marcy. You're one of the executives at the wider church missions at the Cleveland offices of the United Church of Christ. And today it's about global ministries. And the reason we do about global ministries is not to be critical of our own church, but we are often very local in many ways, hardly thinking about that we are part of the United Church of Christ. Even though we say it, we are probably not very knowledgeable about the United Church of Christ as a whole, but that United Church of Christ is at the same time totally international, global. So there are global ministries, and I have been receiving the calendar of global ministries for many years, which is a great thing actually, because it also informs you about the various co-workers and keeps you up to date, and you can pray for it. And of course, that whole situation, which you will say more about, Marcy, started when the missionaries went in the 19th and 20th century, but as a result of that, we are connected as the UCC with churches all over the world, from Indonesia to the Congo to Ecuador and so on. So, and that is in a whole different setting than it was, say, in beginning of 20th century, because now it is within a scene where the churches in the Southern Hemisphere are growing explosively. Roman Catholic, Pentecostal, and in the midst all of that is also the United Church of Christ and various co-workers working there, but churches that are affiliated with us. So, and hopefully actually in another session sometime we will have one of the co-workers or more than one in a session, so we can hear directly from their experiences. But Marcy is the executive, and having worked for 20 years at the Cleveland offices, has lots of experience, tons of stories. And so she will give us a great insight today about what Global Ministries does, what we can do in Global Ministries, and also what's happening all over the world. She just said, of course, that she was in India, Sri Lanka. So she knows from the inside what's going on. So we pray for God's blessing upon this learning hour, and are very thankful that you join us today, Marcy, and the word is yours.
Okay. Thank you. That was a really nice introduction. Probably the best one I've ever had. Thank you very much.
Well, I'm glad this is recorded.
And before if I forget later, the Global Ministries calendar that you talk about is a labor of love for me.
Oh, really?
I do it by myself, start to finish. And so I'm working on it right now. And anyone who wants one, just reach out. I'm happy to send one, or I can send a bunch to your church if you'd like.
Yeah.
But it is it's something I really put my heart into. So I'm glad that you are enjoying it.
Yeah. Well, I'll put myself on mute, but not without saying that I get it, because I do make a gift to Global Ministries, but it also helps me to put monthly the co-workers on my prayer list. So it's wonderful. Really a nice way. Yeah.
Great, thank you so much. I do have a PowerPoint presentation which I'm going to share, if that's okay. I like visuals. I like stories. I'm a visual learner, and I am also tend to be more controversial. Oh my goodness, conversational. So feel free if you have questions. I will, stop and pause at some times to answer questions. But if you have questions in between, just feel free to go ahead and ask them. Sorry, I want to get back to the beginning of my PowerPoint because that would be the best place to start. All right. Okay. There we go. Everybody can see that? Okay. All right. Oh, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. So I'm Marcy Gansler, and I'm the Executive for Mission Engagement for Global Ministries of the United Church of Christ and the Disciples of Christ. I work in Cleveland in the UCC national offices. I have been working from home since March 2020. Our offices remain closed, although we are going in sometimes, especially since, I don't know if you've heard, but the national offices are moving to a different building, and we are tasked with cleaning out the old building where we've been ensconced for 30 years. So I have mostly been going in there to sort, to recycle, to file, to pack. But we are allowed to go in from time to time there's just certain, we can only have a certain amount of people on each floor, and there's all kinds of protocols, masks and everything. So I've been with Global Ministries for 20 years. This is my 20th year. And I do attend a UCC church, South Haven UCC in Bedford, Ohio. I've been attending there for about 28 years. I was married there for my first marriage. And for my second marriage, I was married by the pastor there, just not in the church. So I live with my 11-year-old son, who was adopted from Russia. So I got to travel to Russia as well for that adventure. And my current husband and I were married for 1 year, 2 weeks ago. So here's just a little picture of us so you get to know us. We have one cranky old Chihuahua and 2 energetic Maltese puppies, which you may hear barking. I've shut the door, so hopefully you won't. But so I wanted to start with just a little poem that I just love, and I think it helps to frame how we might look at the world, how we might feel about the world. You may recognize this picture. It is by Katsushiki Hakusai, who was a Japanese artist, painter, and woodblock printmaker. He's best known as the author of the woodblock print series 36 Views of Mount Fuji. This is one of those, which includes the iconic print, The Great Wave off Kanagawa, which is here. So you probably recognize that one. So a man by the name of Roger Keyes, who was an art historian and focused mainly on Japanese art, wrote this poem, and I just think it's a really just beautiful way to start. Hakusai says, look carefully. He says, pay attention, notice. He says, keep looking, stay curious. He says, there is no end to seeing. He says, look forward to getting old. He says, keep changing. You just get more who you really are. He says, get stuck, accept it, repeat, and repeat yourself as long as it is interesting. He says, keep doing what you love. He says, keep praying. He says, every one of us is a child, and every one of us is ancient. Every one of us has a body. He says, every one of us is frightened. He says, every one of us has to find a way to live with fear. He says, everything is alive. Shells, buildings, people, fish, mountains, trees, wood is alive. Water is alive. Everything has its own life. Everything lives inside us. He says, live with the world inside you. He says, it doesn't matter if you draw or write books. It doesn't matter if you saw wood or catch fish. It doesn't matter if you sit at home and stare at the ants on your veranda or the shadows of the trees and grasses in your garden. It matters that you care. It matters that you feel. It matters that you notice. It matters that life lives through you. Contentment is life living through you. Joy is life living through you. Satisfaction and strength are life living through you. He says, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Love, feel, let life take you by the hand. Let life live through you. So I just love that as a kind of opening like a prayer for us. So I'm going to start talking a little bit about Global Ministries and who we are. It's as I heard from Willem that you are not super familiar with the UCC as a whole. So Global Ministries is a little bit complicated to understand for some of us, even people who know the UCC. But basically, Global Ministries is a covenantal partnership between the UCC, United Church of Christ, and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. All of our global work is done together. And we are the only such church partnership in the United States. This year we are celebrating 25 years of partnership, which is pretty outstanding, since this was kind of an experiment in the beginning. Our two denominations have a formal partnership through which the Disciples and UCC share common staff, common budget, programs, projects, and governance in our presence and witness with international partners through the global community. The UCC Global Ministries is a part of wider church ministries, one of the covenantal ministries. So if you know Justice and Witness Ministries and local church ministries, wider church ministries is the ministry where Global Ministries lives. A lot of ministries. So we are a ministry of the United Church of Christ and the Christian Church Disciples of Christ. Global Ministries works with approximately 290 faith-based international partners in almost 90 countries. We work with partners around the world to address challenges and opportunities in their different regions. The darker spots that you see are places where we have, this needs to be updated, but this is where we have active partnerships, and then the lighter places are where we might not have active partnerships at this time. The vision of Global Ministries is that all of God's people in creation share in God's abundant life. And just like our vision, our mission is to receive and share the good news of Jesus Christ by joining with global and local partners to work for justice, reconciliation, and peace. So I have a real short video, which hopefully I get the sound coming out. If you'd like to watch that, it's about, we had this created for when we released our vision, mission, and core values. Let me know if you can't hear it. Can you hear it? Okay. All right. Got it. Okay, let's try this again.
What Global Ministries has done to contribute to the life of South Africa is immeasurable.
Our mission is to be a united witness and outreach to the whole Hong Kong society.
I'm in Colombia because millions of people here in the United States from the United Church of Christ and from the Disciples of Christ want to be present and want to share with them that we care, that we love them, and that we want to support them and to be praying with them.
Global Ministries is doing great things all over the world.
We're very excited about the theme of critical presence, and we believe that our experience and our mission in Argentina and Paraguay can reflect this critical presence model because there is such need for new avenues for mission development there.
We are badly affected by the global warming, and Global Ministry is giving us a lot of assistance in the food security area.
We run a school for visually impaired children in Botswana called Lepoi Center. It is supported by U.S. churches, and we give praise to God for that.
The Global Ministry sent me at a critical time for the Hong Kong people at their time of deepest need.
Just having that support, having that mutual understanding and mutual friendship is of an enormous value to all of us, I think.
I go to simply pray with them, to worship with them, to find ways for them to be in community with each other, with God, with the wider community around them.
We learn from our common Global Ministries partners. We walk with them and show them how our church is involved in mission, and that way we connect in a life-changing way.
I learned more in my 3 years in East Timor from my friends and people that I worked with and met than I could have ever imagined. And it was an experience that changed me forever.
For those churches around the world where
the Christians are a minority, it means a great deal to have the presence of a missionary supporting, walking alongside them, to know that they're connected to the wider church.
It's been a true partnership in the sense that we felt like family and friends.
One of the biggest projects that I'll work with this time around is a human rights documentation project. It's a project of the Peace Commission.
For Christians to go there and stand with Palestinian Christians, to magnify their cry of injustice. This is definitely what Global Ministries should be about.
Looking at the different areas they are working in and seeing that they are not only a church for a particular race of people, a particular color of people. They're a church, they're a community for all the people. And this is so outstanding. Global Ministry is doing a fantastic work.
We need to learn. We need to learn from other people how to see the world, how to see God.
We work together for Jesus Christ, the glory of God.
All right, so in that video, you do get to see a lot of the work that we do, and it really illustrates the our core values of mutuality, presence, community, justice, and peace. One of the things I love about these core values is that, to me, these are core values of a good relationship. These are the qualities of any good relationship: a marriage, a friendship, and that includes the relationships we have with people all over the world. Our mission work is done in partnership. We walk beside people. We don't try to lead them. We don't try to tell them what to do. We work together and learn from each other. And that's what makes it very meaningful. And so to articulate these 5 core values just helps to show what we do. And I always say when we have these come out, I'm like, well, we're already doing all of those things. So it was really just a way to show that these are the ways we engage with people around the world. So. Why can't I get it to go the next one? There we go. So just very quickly, the mutuality is walking in hope, and these are the ways we define these core values for Global Ministries. Walking in hope with others in God's mission. Presence, manifesting God's love by living in intentional, committed relationships. Justice, living out God's radical love by confronting the powers that deny the fullness of life and the integrity of creation. Peace, embodying and reconciling relationships with God, humanity, and creation. Community, building interdependence between and unity among all God's children. And so I will just tell a short story from Syria now. So I traveled to the Middle East in, I believe it was 2019. No, that was 2015, I think it was, 2016. And at that time, we went to Israel, Palestine, Jordan, Egypt, and Lebanon. And so when we were in Jordan, this is where this story comes from, and these were a story about Syrian refugees. So when I walked into the small room of St. Ephraim Syrian Orthodox Church in Amman, Jordan, where Ahmed and his family lived, a line of suitcases along a wall immediately struck me. And so I took a picture because it just hit me. I think we generally have images of who refugees are and what makes them refugees. And most of those images are based on what we see in the media. We imagine tent cities or people living in rags. And while tent cities are sometimes a reality, many times refugees live in cities, like this family did. The suitcases along the wall looked just like mine, just like the one I was traveling with. This family was just like me. The only thing that made me different from this family was where I lived. Ahmed is the gentleman in the middle in the orange. Ahmed told us how they became refugees. His mother had been in the hospital when they received word that the violence had reached their city and bombings had begun on the other side of town. His family quickly packed and what they could carry while Ahmed drove through the crowded streets to get his mother, who was taken off of IVs in the hospital, so that she could leave. Ahmed drove away from the destruction of their city and home. They had no place to go, so they stopped and sold their car and bought plane tickets to Jordan. There in Jordan, Ahmed's family was cared for by the Orthodox Initiative, a Global Ministries partner working to meet the needs of Iraqi and Syrian refugees, both in the city of Amman and in the refugee camps on the border. Ahmed's family of 10 was housed in a small classroom in the church, which was where I met them, and heard about Ahmed solemnly telling their story. His mother became very emotional when he spoke about his work as an art teacher back in Syria, and she tearfully told us how she didn't want to be a burden on their family. While I listened, Ahmad's infant nephew napped on one of the 3 beds in the room while his son played a game on an iPad. I saw in Ahmed and his family strangers who could easily be my family and me. They could easily be a part of my community. After visiting Ahmed and his family, I met Wafa, who works for the Orthodox Initiative. I traveled with her to a church and participated in a food and voucher distribution for refugees. I think many of us have that preconception that a food distribution is usually chaotic and sometimes violent, but that is nothing like what I experienced. Families walked to the shaded vestibule, and they quietly pulled chairs out of the church and set them up and took their seats. Sorry, I'm having a little trouble going to the next slide. As each family's name, that's me. I got to help with the vouchers. That was a very powerful moment for me. I did smile more than I look like I am in that picture. As each family's name was called, the representative for that family walked up to receive a voucher for food, a voucher for clothing, a bag of school supplies for the children, and snacks that had been donated. They only received the vouchers if their name was registered with the church and their name was checked off after they received their items. It was extremely well organized, and everyone was both respectful and pleasant. Several asked if I would take their photo, which I did. It was difficult for me to express how humbling this experience was. I wanted to tell each one of those strangers that I respected them and that I prayed that they would hold tight to their dignity and that I knew this situation they found themselves in was not their fault. And one of the things I loved about this experience is that it was done in a way that held people's dignity up. So this is Wafa. Wafa later shared that it was important to the organization that they not give used items or items of poor quality to the refugees. Coming from a culture where we donate our used items, this surprised me. She said that refugees are our family members who are coming to stay with us and we should be providing them with the best, just as we would with any welcomed guest. She emphasized how refugees have been through so much more than most of us have, so they deserve the best we can give. What if we really embraced that idea? What if we brought out the good towels and the fine china for our global family, for immigrants and for refugees, no matter who they are or where they are on life's journey? What if we bought brand new quality goods when we make our donations? As people of faith, how is God calling us to expand our understanding of community? So what do you care about in God's world? Why do you care? I think when you really think about it, I have a feeling you'll find, like me, that it's all about relationships. It's about community. It's the personal and meaningful connections that challenge stereotypes and the prejudices we have learned. It's seeing each other face to face that allows us to see our similarities and the connectedness we have with one another. In these ways, we expand our vision of community. The pictures here, this one, two stories. This one up on the top, that is actually my mother, who was able to travel with me in 2005 to China. And the bottom middle one, this was from my last trip to internationally in 2019 to Sri Lanka. And during that time, we met with a group of women who had formed a collective to help one another start businesses and become independent and earn money for their families. And they talked about being not having husbands or being single and trying to manage their family. And I was experiencing being a single mother at that time. And so I said something and I said, I really admire you all for how you're working through this. And after, all these women came up to me like I was a celebrity, want to take a picture with me. And finally, one of the gentlemen who was with us, who also spoke English and Tamil, I think is what they were speaking. And he said they want to take a picture with you because they didn't think Americans lived like they do. They didn't think there were Americans that were single mothers trying to provide for their family. And so they find that really interesting. So in a way, it challenged their perceptions of who we are. So Global Ministries works through partnerships, as I've kind of illustrated there. Whatever you're passionate about, we likely have a partner doing the work that would excite you. Again, we have 90 partners around the world, so they are involved in things like education, clean water, food security, women's empowerment, church capacity building, refugee care, environmental justice, healthcare, peace with justice, and more, including trauma counseling, interfaith work, anti-human trafficking efforts, and microcredit programs. So one thing people like to always ask is, how is this funded? So Global Ministries is funded by our church's wider mission, which is OCWM, and 1 great hour of sharing, and your special gifts. So your church is already involved in everything I'm talking about just by your giving to OCWM and giving to OGHS. For special gifts, people sometimes donate, and I'll talk more about this later. People donate to special projects or a cause that's important to them. 100% of those gifts are distributed as designated without any administrative fees taken out. This is thanks to your OCWM giving, which covers the overhead and the administrative costs. So one thing people often ask us about too is they want to serve. They want to know how they can serve. So I'll just go over that for a minute. Now during this COVID time, a lot of these things are not working the way they used to. And right now we do have mission coworkers serving around the world, but we do have quite a few who are serving from the United States, but working with their partners via Zoom and technology. So things are a little different right now as that goes. And you might hear me saying mission coworkers. We no longer use the word for about 2 years now, the word missionary. We're trying to get out from under the connotation of colonialism and that we are here to change, convert, modernize, or anything else the people that we are serving with. Again, we consider this a friendship, a partnership, so we try not to make this feel like a hierarchy. And so we've kind of decided to use the term mission coworkers instead, as speaking of coworkers that work alongside the partners they're serving. The different designations of our mission coworkers are these 4. The fully appointed mission coworkers, that means that they are fully funded with a salary from Global Ministries and or the partner they're serving with. We also have some funding, special funding for mission coworkers now that we do specific fundraising for their appointment. But that's the top tier, I guess. Global Mission interns are young people just out of college or not too far out of college who serve with a mission partner for 1 to 2 years. And often they come back to the United States and serve with a local mission partner for a year at least. So we have a young man who just came back from Korea, South Korea. He was serving there in an educational capacity, and now he is serving in Tucson in a ministry for on the border for immigrants. And the global service worker is considered a volunteer position. So those are volunteers that a lot of times are retired people who are serving for as many years as they like to, really. Some people can give a year or 2, and some, that's their retirement is serving in mission. And then the short-term volunteers are anywhere from 3 weeks to 6 months usually. And sometimes these are people who can who have like a sabbatical time, who want to use that time to serve in another country or with a specific partner. So ways that your church can connect and you can connect with God's global mission. So Global Ministries offers free curricula and worship resources. We write everything ourselves. In fact, I have a big hand in doing those things. So we have recently come out with a curriculum for kids, young adults, called Ready, that challenges their stereotypes and perceptions of the world. And it's a 4-part series, I believe. And the Reach one is when we did this Ready curriculum, we had churches who said, I'd like to be able to do this with my adult groups. And so we created Reach, Renewing, Engaging, and Advocating Churches. And that one has been real popular as well for churches to kind of engage in how they're serving their community and people outside their community. The other three, the other two listed here, we have global initiatives every General Synod for an 18-month time, and we create a children's curriculum for that can be used for VBS. So the first one here was for our Middle East initiative called Alan Wasalan, and this one on the right was Embrace the Fruits of the Spirit, which was for our Latin America and Caribbean initiative, and focused on the fruits of the Spirit. The center one here is called a Refugee Journey, Syria. This we at National Youth Event, and I believe it was 2016, we put together a walkthrough journey of what a Syrian refugee would go through. And while we were doing this, it became so powerful for the adults who were there. They wanted to be able to do this for their church. So we created a curriculum that can be used in your church, can be recreated to walk through what a Syrian refugee might go through. And it's sort of game-like, but obviously it's not a game. But we offer with the kids, when we did it at National Youth Event, we had them pick a colored backpack that they could keep, and we had them write 5 things that they would take with them if they became a refugee, if they had to leave their house immediately. What 5 things would they take with them? And some of them assumed that they couldn't take like electronics or their cell phones, but we said that's often one of the main things that people do take with them as a refugee. And then they put that card into their backpack and then kind of walked along this journey, and the color of their backpack determined their fate along the journey. And it was really powerful. The youth really got it, and it was really interesting to also see how the adults were really interested in it too. So we made that into a curriculum that is available online, and it has like a backpack color that you can print out so that you can pick your backpack color, because we don't have any more backpacks, sorry, but that you're going to still go through the same kind of journey. We also have a child and elder sponsorship program through Global Ministries. This program started out as just a UCC program, and these programs work closely with our partner organizations that have long established links with the UCC and disciples. So your gifts for sponsoring a child provide food, basic health care, clothing, and in some cases, housing, school fees, uniforms, books, and training. In many countries, an individual is not entitled to governmental assistance after retirement unless they have worked for the government. So Global Ministries Elder Sponsorship Centers assist elders who have no place to live and no family to care for them. If you sponsor an elder, that helps to provide shelter, medicine, and meals. And then elders are also given the opportunity to live out their lives in dignity and solace in an environment where they feel loved and cared for. One of the most amazing places that we have as a center is called the Family Village Farm in India. And at this center, the children are put into family groups, and so they have an elder who can also be sponsored at that center, and children, and they live together in a small house as a family group. And so it gives the elders a purpose and a place to grow old with dignity. and helps the children have more of a family unit as they go to school and learn. One thing about sponsorships is that you can give them as holiday gifts in honor or memory of someone, or you can also just make a one-time gift to use where it's needed the most. And as I said with the other giving, 100% of your sponsorship gift will be designated for the use of the child or the elder you sponsor. It is not used for the administrative fees, but if you'd like to make a gift to that administrative cost, that is always accepted. And I love telling people about this program because it's one of the only, if not the only one I've found, that 100% of what you give goes to the child or elder to support them. And so I think that's an amazing gift. And again, that's OCWM money covering the administrative costs. I've sponsored several children, and you can, when you sponsor a child, you can sponsor a child in several different centers. That's all on our website. The one thing I would say, though, is if you want to correspond with your child, you'll want to contact the child sponsorship administrator to assign you a child in a place where that is possible. In some centers, there is very limited resources. They sometimes can barely get a picture of the child, and let alone have someone translate messages. So when I first sponsored a child, I sponsored a child at a Tibetan refugee camp. I did not get anything but a picture of the child. And then I sponsored a child in Jerusalem, in a school in Jerusalem, and I got her report cards and cards from her at holidays, and they had the resources to help translate the things, plus the children learned English. So that was pretty special, and I got to meet her when I traveled to Jerusalem on one of my trips. So that was really exciting too. And sometimes, as I'm thinking about this, but it's also a great program if you have a Sunday school class that wants to do a mission, or a whole Sunday school group that wants to do some kind of a outreach mission, and they can correspond with the child as well. It's been very popular for that, or for special giving for VBS. Oops, I got these out of order, I think. Here we go. People-to-people pilgrimages are group trips, and that's another outreach that we do that churches can be involved in. These are group trips to other countries that we try to, we help you plan, and you get to meet international partners. So some of the trips that I've been on have been people-to-people pilgrimages, and the amazing thing is you get to see what life is really like. So when I went to India, I did get to see the Taj Mahal. That was amazing. But I also got to visit people who lived in the slum areas, people who worked for the different church partnerships that we have there. And this particular picture was a picture I took. Actually, I'm standing there in the corner. And this was in a slum area in New Delhi. And one of the interesting things about this particular program, the children who lived here weren't going to school. And so they couldn't figure out, the only reason they couldn't go to school is because all of the registration was online, and they don't have computers. So one of the groups that had traveled there purchased a computer, and now that is in this lady's house. So the lady who is standing, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but the lady who is standing toward the back in front of the man with the red on, this is her house. And this is also the community center for the entire community there. So they have built, one of the partners built this house for her so that she could live here, but also run the community center. So children can come and parents can come and register for school here. They have groups of women that come and talk together and support each other and talk about their issues and concerns. And they also have children's groups that do a variety of different things. And the woman was recruited because she lives in the slum area herself. So one of the things that I thought was fascinating about this whole thing was they put this together, but they hired the person to run it as someone who's trusted in that community already. So it's a very, very powerful way of working. And this generation is going to be the first generation in this slum area that goes to school. And the parents and the children and everyone knows this is the way out. So for generations and generations and generations, they have been living in these areas and these terrible conditions. These children will have an education and they will be able to move out of that area. The children seated in front were part of they formed a drama group to share about some of the issues that they have as being in the lower caste system, which is illegal in India, but is still happening. And they won awards for their dramatic enterprise. So they were very proud of that. And they are super serious about school. On this day we were there, they did not have school because there was elections that day, but they had exams the next day and they were all practicing and studying very hard. In fact, they were a little bit anxious to get out of there after talking to us so they could go back to their studies. This is just a great quote. When we're speaking about mission, we're speaking about love, about seeking the highest good of the other person. I think it's important to adopt a baptismal model of mission, one in which one immerses him or herself into the experience of the other and comes out transformed. And that's from Oral Thomas, a president of the United Theological College of the West Indies in Kingston, Jamaica. And I would say for me that it was definitely powerful. I've been a tourist, and this is life-changing, these group trips. And you make friends and you see people who are just like you and have hopes and dreams for their families just like you do. But you also get to see the reality of how people live and some of the reality of their going through in the different countries based on certain laws or certain restrictions and that sort of thing. So, and I'll go back to, I don't know why I put that one in there by that. Let's go back here. Why is it only going forward? Oh, here we go. Okay, hold on. That's just a preview. All right, we'll go to this one first. I've talked a little bit about alternative giving. Oh, before I forget, the people-to-people pilgrimages, obviously there are none going right now because of the COVID-19 pandemic. So they've had to cancel all the ones for 2020, and for right now, everything is on hold, and they're not even planning any until through the end of the year. And it's unclear what will be next for the people-to-people pilgrimage program. As I had mentioned earlier, the administrator for the people-to-people pilgrimage program, who is actually Lorna Hernandez, who is sitting right next to the woman with the purple hair, had mentioned to me just a couple weeks ago how it's not just about our safety when we travel to other countries, but it's also about the safety of the people we're going to visit and what we might carry and possibly, infect people with. And so it's a safety on both ends that they're considering right now. But because we can't go in person, we have been doing some virtual pilgrimages. We did one to Puerto Rico last couple months ago, which was very excellent. And the next one will be in Ecuador. That one you can sign up for on our webpage. It is on the homepage. It's $25, and you're gonna get like 6 days of couple hours each day of programming from the partners in Ecuador, sharing about what they're doing and their faith and some culture and everything. And the last one was just excellent. I would highly recommend it if you want to do a journey to another country without leaving your house. All right, so I talked a little bit earlier about the alternative giving and alternative gifts and special giving. There are projects around the world that are identified by our partners as needing funding, and so we do list those on our website as the ones that need funding. Once they are funded, we do take them off of the website. These can include microcredit programs for women, building wells in China, and all sorts of other types of giving. They are also we also offer a what is the word? Category giving, where if you just want to send money to support education around the world or to support women's empowerment around the world, you can do so. We also offer the alternative gifts program, which can be done any time of the year, but we do push it for Christmas, where you can make a gift in honor or memory of someone that you want to make a gift to. And last year I did Mother's Day gifts to a women's empowerment agency in honor of my mother and my sister-in-law, and they were very moved by getting those gifts. They do send a card to the recipient and sometimes send pictures of that project. And the other way that we also have innovative ways of giving listed on the website that include Facebook fundraisers, vehicle donation, and more, if that's something you'd like to engage in. So back to the resources, we offer a program called the Global Mission Church Program, and this program can really propel your congregation to a new relationship or just affirm the engagements already in place in mission. Oh, I kind of lost my train of thought there for a second. Okay, so wherever your congregation is in mission, this helps celebrate that, evaluate what you're doing in mission, and offers ideas and ways to grow in mission if your church wants to do that. And again, your church is already doing all of these things through OCWM giving. And because you're a part of the UCC, this is your UCC church at work around the world. And so to celebrate that, all you have to do is engage in some of these different ways. If you do decide to become a Global Mission Church, there is a process, and you can send that to us and we'll send you a certificate and list you on the website as a Global Mission Church. This is one of the official designations of the UCC, such as Open and Affirming churches, Just Peace churches. I think there's 8 of them, and this is one of those. This has been affirmed through a resolution at General Synod as one of the designated programs of the church. Mission coworker relationships. We have mission coworkers around the world, obviously, and some of the things we offer are mission coworker stories on our website. So the mission coworkers write stories and send them to us, and we post those on the web. We do share those in our weekly update, which you can sign up for. It's a weekly email with all the highlights from Global Ministries. And you can also have a formal partnership with a mission coworker through our mission personnel office. So this would be your mission coworker that you have a partnership with would be communicating with you, and also you'd be the first to know about their the work they're doing and any new writings they've done. And when they're in the United States, so they do have to come back every 4 years for itineration, they will itinerate and visit your church. I do want to go back to, sorry, not using, I want to go back to this one. And so Willem had mentioned earlier about the Global Ministries calendar, and it does list all of our mission coworkers, and on each Sunday to pray for, it lists the coworker and the country that they're serving. Corresponding with that, we have weekly prayers on the website that are written by those same mission coworkers that are listed in the calendar. They write a weekly prayer, and they write a short mission moment that some churches use in their bulletins or read during, you can read the prayer during their prayer time. The mission moments are really help you understand some of the work that they're doing. And those are always available on our homepage of Global Ministries. It's the first thing on the homepage. And again, it corresponds with that Global Ministries calendar, the person on the Sunday. And finally, I have, what was I going to say? Okay, so finally, it's our area initiatives. So we started this, I can't even remember when, but it usually these initiatives launch at General Synod and continue for 18 months. So far, we have had the Congo Initiative, the Middle East Initiative, the Caribbean Initiative, and the Southern Asia Initiative. These are 18-month focus on those countries. We have people-to-people pilgrimages go to those countries. We have extra resources, curriculum that focus on those countries, or not countries, but all those regions. And you know, they talk about the issues and effects of all sorts of concerns in those countries and those areas on the region, but also specifically on certain countries that we identify. And of course, we lift up our partners from those regions as well. So in 2023, launching at General Synod will be the Pacific Basin Initiative. And that will include the Pacific Islands and Japan and some of the other countries that are kind of on that Pacific Basin area and in the Pacific Basin. All right, and I know I put in my little blurb that UCC is at the United Nations. The UCC has had a representative at the United Nations since 1945, when it began. Our representative there now is Rebecca Choate, and she does go to the United Nations usually once or twice a year before COVID, and represents the UCC and our interests and beliefs at the United Nations in different forums. She works a lot with the women's groups, and right now we are working to highlight for the UCC the decade for people of African descent. So you are funding all of this, as I said, through OCWM and OGHS giving. And so I want to say thank you, but also to just offer that all of this work that you're seeing here is, a lot of it comes out of my office, and there's just 2.5 of us in this office. So, but anytime you need resources or you want to learn more about something, we're happy to be your first level of contact, or if we can't answer it, we will send you on to the people who can answer your questions. But I do want to open it up to any questions you might have, and I'll kind of stop sharing here for a minute.
Thank you so much, Marcy. Really
I know I talk very fast, but I do want to give you time to to ask questions as well.
But it makes it dynamic too.
Okay, good.
One thing I would want to add for, not so much for you, because, but for whoever is in the audience today, is that our church contributes to our church wider mission through the budget. Actually, we don't have a special offering, but it is included in the budget with a certain percentage of the budget, so it automatically is included every year that we contribute to that. So
and that is most churches. So that's what that OCWM is not a special offering, but yeah, as you said, it is it is a designated giving that churches decide.
But some other churches, I was at a church before where it was an offering every year. So
okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, okay. So it goes differently. Yeah.
Right, I guess so. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
And then OGHS, One Great of Sharing, which is an offering your church may or may not participate in, that does fund a lot of what you've seen here, as far as projects and sometimes mission coworkers as well.
All right, now I'll be quiet and time for questions.
I know it's overwhelming sometimes.
No, it's so energizing.
Oh, good.
I've got a question. I'm so impressed with what you're doing. What do you what are there programs dealing with this interface between, say, poverty and climate change?
The area offices, so we have 5 areas of the world which are designated by the different colors, which I should have said when I showed you that map. But the 5 area offices a few years ago designated certain topics to be the overarching themes that they're addressing through partnerships around the world. And yes, one of those is climate change, big time. As climate change is, we've seen it really starting to affect the Pacific churches in the Pacific, but now it's affecting even more places with, more disasters and more challenging disasters, really destructive disasters that are happening. So it is something that we're addressing and trying to lift up the voices of the people who live in these regions and what they're experiencing based on climate change. And of course, poverty is a big thing with that too. We also recently did a webinar on COVID-19 access or vaccine access and COVID-19 in these areas, because again, poverty makes a humongous difference to access to good health care, and that would include getting vaccines for COVID-19 in different countries. So does that help? Does that answer your question? Yes, Alice?
I have a question. Do you have currently women's empowerment programs going on in India?
Yes, we do. So you'd have to look them up online, but we have more partners in India than anywhere else. And some of the programs that we did get to visit, like the one where I showed you the woman in that slum area who had that house. Some of the women, which you can't see there, were before the children came in, were telling us they formed a collective, and because we support this partner, we're supporting all of this. They formed a collective of women to help support each other, but also to help them get out of poverty as well. But one of the things that they talked about, which I thought was fascinating, is that domestic violence is huge, and it's a big problem around the world, but it's a really big problem in India, and it's even more exacerbated by poverty. And so some of these women, through this collective they've gotten together and just support each other, it's almost like a support group, they meet every week, have started to support each other in standing up. So like one woman said, I just told my husband he can't do that anymore. And he's not. And she's like, they said, sometimes it's just being aware that this is not how life has to be. But there have also been some women who, if they decide to leave their husbands, they are destitute. Their families will not take them back. Their in-laws will disown them. And so they have supported each other for women who have decided to make the decision to leave their abusive situations. So in a lot, that's one that I know of, but we do have a lot of women's empowerment in every region of the world that we work.
But do you have a particular one you can refer to in Mumbai?
You know what? I don't know that we list them by where they are. So hold on a second. I can bring up. And I would say, if you want to learn more, go to our website. Again, another labor of love for me, but we have tried to make it as user-friendly as possible. We did move to a new website when the UCC moved to a new website because we are hosted on their platform. The website is globalministries.org. Because we are 2 denominations, we can't really be housed in one or the other denomination's website. So,
great.
Yeah, we don't list where they are, and there's only a couple places that I know where they are because of they're with a certain partner, but I am not positive. I can get back to you about that if you want me to go ahead and look and find out what we might have in Mumbai area. I'm sure we do. I just don't know where they're located.
I work in Maharashtra and Gujarat.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Sure.
Other questions?
I have a question. Are there adult education topics whether it's speakers or topics to lead a study group or something on some of these topics that can bring it down to a congregational level?
Certainly. Some of the webinars that we do are specific to certain issues, topics, or even countries. Almost always is an issue. It's something like we recently did the COVID-19 one. And so we do offer those. They're presented by our staff, and they are geared toward congregations who want to learn more. So I will say, so our mission, the heads of our area offices are very theological and academic. So sometimes it does get a little heady, but that's part of my job, is to make sure that we're translating the work that we're doing in ways that everyone can understand, including me.
Everyone, first to thank you for the calendars. They've always very nice, and my kids love the maps.
Excellent.
So they now know some of the continents. But my question was, is Global Ministries and our partners playing a role in COVID response in some of these countries that have few resources and very low rates?
One of the fascinating things, really early on, I think in like May 2020, we requested videos from our partners in what they were doing in response to COVID. We have an entire page of like more than 100 resources that we received from partners, including videos. And I was so amazed and impressed that for some of these places, these partners and churches were the first line of response to the pandemic. So teaching proper hygiene, getting as much PPE as they could out to people, but really with the hand washing and just staying distant from people, which is very challenging in a lot of countries. So I was so amazed how quickly a lot of these partners responded, and you can see those videos online. they're all really short. Like I think they're all like within like 3 minutes or so. But also some of the resources illustrate exactly their plan and what they were doing. It was very impressive. Like it's more impressive than some of the places around here. So and of course these partners are funded by Global Ministries through the UCC and the Disciples. So we are supporting that work, but it's really great sometimes to see it in action, and those videos really do help with that. If that helps answer your question, but yeah,
No,
we've got it's
I'll check
all
out
over the. Yeah,
I'll
go
check
ahead.
out that website. That sounds
Yeah, let me
great.
see. I could probably give you paste it here for you too. Yeah. While I'm looking for that, if anybody else has questions. So might have to do a lot of scrolling here, but on the top of the page, I'm going to put it in the chat if that's okay. On the top of the page, we do list with the bulleted items are the meaty stuff, and then below that is all the updates from the different partners. So there is some stories from mission coworkers about their experiences during COVID, projects that are addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, and then video updates from the global partners is the second to last item there. Anything else?
Well, one of the things that I was reading about too, that someone was asking, why are we not more presented in the rest of the world? Because we are, of course, the rich nation with Europe. At the same time, there is this kind of parallel movement going on, because what you talk about this morning, I mean, it's so energizing for me to see and listen to that, is the parallel between what happens in this country, where we have the same dynamics almost as from us to the rest of the world at the same time. And I think sometimes we feel like, well, we cannot go to the rest of the world because we have already more than enough going on here at home, even locally here in the Bay Area where we are, if we look at the offerings that we do every week for all kinds of organizations. At the same time, of course, we are the rich countries. And then listening to you with 290 partners for a relatively small church, the United Church is represented pretty amazingly, I think, in the rest of the world, as far as that goes, about being there and helping and serving and sharing as much as we can. At the same time, it's one of the reasons I wanted this learning hour. I hope we as a church can be more aware of it, that we do this, and also be more involved in it in some way or other. So one of the things I want to do too is put this in the Carillon, our weekly newsletter, and highlight a few things so that people get interested in watching the recording that Ron is making of this learning hour. So it spreads a little wider.
I want to put in a word here too for the mission of justice and service, and the way that we are currently entertaining proposals for our offerings. And that is to say, the way that we're doing that now is that a member of the congregation is involved with something. And they bring that organization to us and say, you know, I would like to have this group make an application. So the involvement of a member of the congregation is very central to the way we're making donations now.
And I I'm not involved in certain ones. We already made some suggestions, and I had even tried to make this a thing of justice and service and adult learning, but it was a little too late to make this all happen. But maybe we can in some way or other connect to one of those partnerships or one of those sponsorships, so that we as a church do something.
So it would be up to you, Willem, or one of the others here to say that I will be the person doing that, doing that connection, that partnering.
And I would be happy to partner with you as well. So, or guide you along, whoever wants to do it. You don't have to be alone. So,
no. And
I always say I'm your inside person. If you need anything UCC, just give me a call. I will usually, because sometimes like people don't return calls or whatever, I will like go stand in their doorway and be like, did you call that person back? So
yeah, she is good. I worked with her. We had several emails back and forth and even calls. So Marcy is good as far as that goes. And one of the things I also would like to do is see if there is other people in our congregation who have international relationships or experiences in their family or acquaintances who are actually involved or connected with people working in other countries, maybe even connected to other churches, because I think that would be interesting.
Yeah, and that's more often what I recommend. We've recommended to people, churches too, to find a way in, talk to your, it's a relationship thing again. People in your church have some experiences or connections. Somebody's son-in-law serves in another country as a pastor or something like that. Those are your ins. Those are your ways that you can connect. So find out more about that country and ways that you can help partner with him or with other organizations there that we work with as well. You did bring up something that reminded me. I didn't talk about the mission history of the United Church of Christ, but the UCC, the very first American mission organization was called ABCFM, the American Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions. That ABCFM is a predecessor body of Global Ministries. So, and that was founded in 1810. And the table that charter was signed on sits right outside of my office. Now it's in a glass case, but when I first started here, it was not, and people would set their coffee on it, and I would have a panic attack. So it's just a table, I know, but it was like this is like a national treasure, really. Yeah. So, we do have that history, and things were not always done right, as we know, but we've learned, and we're growing from that. And we do, there are not UCC churches, like, how sometimes there's certain denominations like Lutherans and Methodists. They have churches in other countries, right? That they are actually Methodist or Lutheran churches. The UCC does not have that, but we do work with established partners, many of whom were established by the mission coworkers of the past 200+ years. Yeah. And there are a lot of our partners that are named United Church of Christ. So we have the United Church of Christ in the Philippines, UCCP, United Congregational Church of Southern Africa. Obviously, these were places that have deep and very long connections with the UCC. So it's something we could be proud of, that long history, and that we've grown to understand mission in a different way that serves everyone's humanity and dignity and health.
Yeah. And without that, you wouldn't have 290 partners.
Right. That's true. It's very true.
Yeah, I mean, so that makes it so interesting because there was so much colonialism and capitalism in what happened, but at the same time, and that's kind of the messiness of the church, as the Reverend Molly, our senior minister, would say. At the same time, it gives the platform to work with today in a different way, in as good as we understand it now. So, yeah.
And I mean, colonialism and power have been a huge topic since I've been working there, that we try to convey, because there's so many churches and Christians in the United States who don't understand that, and still think we should be converting the heathens or, but we do, we do work in religious ways, but a lot of what we do is our living out our faith and our commitment as a church. We did write. We've done a couple study books with our staff of reading books about global mission and talking and then discussing them at some of our meetings. And after like the third one, we were like, this is terrible. This is not at all what we do. So we wrote our own book. Yeah, and so that book is available at the Pilgrim Press. I can send you guys some copies for your church if you'd like. It talks about the getting out from under the dynamics of colonialism and power.
That's wonderful.
It was again a labor of love. So I can, if you'd like me to, I can send you maybe 10 copies that you can distribute at your church. They are for sale, so if you'd like more, maybe you can buy some more, but I could send you some too. And there were questions in there, so you can do that as a study with your like a study group or adult study group. And yeah, that's all I have for that. But
thank you very much.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, the
It
book
talks
sounds
about
great.
yeah, it talks about giving, it talks about serving, it talks about partnership, and several of our staff have written very powerful books about the power dynamics that have been historical in mission work, and that we're trying to get out from under. But it's not even in the beginning when I was working there, not even all of our staff really got that. So when I started working there, I was like, I don't think I was a UCC member, but I didn't even know the national offices were in Cleveland, and so let alone did I know that we did all this work. And I actually started there as administrative staff, and I remember one day I was like, I don't think I can do this because I really don't believe in the converting the heathens. Like I had a South Park mentality of what mission work was like, and so the more I learned, the more I was like, this is exactly where I need to be. I mean, the UCC values are lived out, and my personal values are reflected in the work we do. And I love my job because of that, because of the people I work with, but also because this is who I am. And so it feels good to be able to support that. So that's why I moved up the ranks and stayed.
Thank you, Marcy. It is
Certainly.
1:30. Yeah.
All right.
So, Ron, it's a good time to stop, right? Oh, you are on mute.
You're muted, Ron.
You're mute, Ron.
What's the name of the book again, Marcy?
Yeah, that was the question.
Let me send you a link to that.
Okay.
Real quick. And I do have a closing prayer if you'd like to use it. If you'd like me to do that, I would be happy.
I was thinking, if you want to do a prayer, then that would be great.
I would love to do that.
And then we end with that and we say thank you to all of you attending. We'll put it in our weekly newsletter, and we wish our blessings to you in the work you do. Thank you very much.
Certainly. Here's the link to that book. It's got a long title, so that's why I sometimes don't remember. It's Restoring Dignity, Nourishing Hope, Developing Mutuality in Mission. And the chapters are written by staff and by mission coworkers and by partners. So we've got everyone's voices there.
Marcy, can you also let us know the author of the poem that you gave at the beginning? It was a lovely
certainly.
poem.
Yeah, his name is, wait a minute, Roger Keyes. So I'll put it in there also. Roger Keyes. That's who wrote the poem. I can send some of these resources and links to you, Willem, that you could distribute to the people who are here if that would be helpful.
Good. Thank you.
All right, because I know they also won't show up when people watch the video.
Yep.
All right, so we want to close with the prayer. Are we ready?
Let's
okay. All right. Please pray with me. Creator God, we know our neighbors and are those who live next door and those who live around the world. We know we are all parts of your beloved world, and we all are loved and celebrated for our uniqueness. Allow us to be in community with one another here in this place, at home, at church, and in communities that stretch around the world. Help us to remember the importance of being present in all of our relationships and affirming the humanity and gifts of others. Let us give, receive, serve, and be served with an open heart to create relationships of mutual understanding and love. Remind us of the important role each of us has in creating and becoming the communities you want for your world. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Let your Sunday be good.